So what is meteor and comet impact and extinction? When a large object impacts the surface of the Earth, the rock at the site of the impact is deformed and some of it is ejected back into the atmosphere and eventually falls back to the surface. In layman's terms, it's when a big rock from space smacks the Earth. Earth is not the only planet that gets hits by meteors and comets, however. We see images of other bodies in the solar system. Perhaps the most common things we observe are the impacts of craters on the surfaces of other planets. Like everything else in the solar system, the Earth is cratered also. The difference is that Earth is geologically active, and we have an atmosphere that screens out some of the smaller incoming solar rock. The surface of the Earth is continually reshaping by erosion, volcanoes, crusty formation, and craters produced on the surface Earth eventually erode over time. But the active surface of the Earth and our thick atmosphere means that we only have a partial impact crater record. First, we need to review our space rocks, especially the difference between a meteor and a comet. For those of you who don't remember back in elementary school when we learned what they are, a meteor is a glowing fragment of rock matter outside of the Earth's atmosphere that burns and glows upon entering the Earth's atmosphere. Meteors are most commonly known as shooting stars. There are three types of meteors: stones, irons, and stony irons. A comet, on the other hand, is a body that orbits around the sun with an eccentric orbit. As a comet approaches the sun, solar radiation generates gases from evaporation of the comet's surface. These gases are pushed away from the comet and glow in the sun's light, thus giving the comet its tail. I'm sure the thought of chunks of huge pieces of space rock zooming towards the Earth is a little bit scary, but the likelihood of a big rock hitting the Earth is slim to none. As you can see from the graph in the PowerPoint, there's only a 1 in 20,000 chance of us getting hit by a big rock. So what I learned from my research is basically that there's space rocks that zoom around the universe, and sometimes they come into close contact with the Earth, but it's very unlikely, and that there is actually a difference between meteors and comets. Who knew? Next we're going to hear from Anthony, and he's going to tell you about what were and will be the results of a meteor or comet impact.
Thank you, Sarah. And now I'll be telling you what the results, what were the results, and what the results will be of a meteor comet impact. Results from a meteor or comet impact are deadly and threatening to mankind. We have learned that what is known as the Big Bang, it is known as an impact that made the dinosaurs become extinct. We know that that it all has to do with the meteor size. We have hundreds of meteor impacts, but half the time when they come through the atmosphere, they're no bigger than a quarter or a rock. We know that the Big Bang meteor was about the size of San Francisco. The meteor hit in the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico, and this created a crater that was 20 times as deep as the Grand Canyon. You got to imagine how big that is if anybody's seen the Grand Canyon. I haven't seen it, so I really wouldn't know. This huge crater was not discovered until the year of 1981 by two geophysicists digging for oil for a company Pemex. They actually stumbled upon the crater. This crater was 200 meters across, and it was buried under 100 feet of limestone. This created the KT boundary. The results of the impact consisted of many deadly activities. After the impact, mankind could be looking at extinction throughout the world. Some immediate effects of these impacts could be a fireball or ejecta that will ignite fires all over the world, as well as it can cause heavy, thick smoke that will rise into the air and block out the sun, as well as make it hard for you to breathe because it's going to be so thick, as well as and the fires as well from the heavy, thick smoke. A large portion of the ozone layer will also be destroyed, which protects us from the ultraviolet rays. And these meteor impacts also can trigger volcanic activity It may also trigger earthquakes and tsunamis, very large tsunamis that can inundate coastal areas. What a few things I learned a couple things from doing this research on meteor comet impact. I used to believe that you would the extinctions came from just the comet actually or the meteor hitting Earth, and from the power that it comes and the speed. I thought just the impact would kill everything and everyone. But I learned that there's just so many other things that correlate with the impact, which is volcanoes and tsunamis and the air pollution, and so there's just many other things that you can die from, and that's pretty much what I learned from doing the research.
There are endless environmental issues facing our planet today, both cosmic and global. Our cosmic fear is the idea of a meteor hitting the planet, creating a mass extinction. Statistically, the chances of this happening are very minor, although it has happened several times in Earth's history. Meteors can be found everywhere on the planet, although 6 out of 7 do land in the water. The ozone layer is thinning. Scientists estimate that as much as 70% can be destroyed during the spring. Many species are being affected. Land and marine plants exposed to the increased amount of UV experience interferences with photosynthesis. In the marine ecosystem, the interferences have caused coral bleaching. A majority of the sea life is found far from the deep ocean and located primarily in the scarce areas that coral reefs support. The growing ozone hole over the poles has also thinned 50 to 98% depending on the area. The Earth is heating up. The Arctic regions have begun to melt, putting polar species at risk of losing their habitat. Sea levels are rising, putting coastal cities at risk of being swallowed by the sea. Total waste generated by the U.S. has doubled in the last 40 years. U.S. holds 6% of the population of the total of the globe, but yet we are responsible for 30% of the waste. The excess waste has led to massive garbage patches in the ocean. One patch is in the Pacific Ocean and it is the size of 2 Texases put side by side. Another issue is the deforestation of our plants, which is our global lungs. The largest forest is the Amazon. To supply the demand of wood, the forest is only 16% of its original stature, not to mention that over half of all known land species are found to live in the rainforest. Without trees, less carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere. Our growing need to supply enough energy has also resulted in drilling for oil on land and at sea. Oil spills have caused ecosystem devastations that take decades to recover from. Many environmental problems today are fast affecting the world around us, and it is up to man to stop them from spreading. Old mistakes and creation of new ones stand in the way of environmental progress. The biggest threat to our environment today are created by man. Unfortunately, a meteor is not what's going to do us in.
Changes in the Earth's landscape result in meteor and comet impact on the Earth's surface, and often these cause craters. And craters are formed after the collision between meteor and the Earth. Once a meteor hits and forms, it's either known as a simple crater or a complex crater. A simple crater is usually smooth on the inside versus a complex crater that is usually a little bumpy and hilly on the inside. The crater takes on characteristics of a bowl, and because it's uplifted on the rims because rocks near the upper levels of the craters move upward and outward, while rocks in the lower levels move downward and outward. So the impact craters are no longer present. The marks left by older comets have faded away due to erosion. They have been worn away by gradual wearing of wind and water, natural movements of the Earth. The craters on Earth today are actually pretty recent, and they were caused by relatively large meteorites. And they're usually in parts of the world where little geologic changes occur. Can also have a chance of hitting the ocean when it's not likely, but when large comets hit the ocean, it's liable to cause a tsunami and or earthquakes, and also destroy lots of land. NASA actually claims that the odds of this occurring are very unlikely, stating that the closest comet to reach Earth's atmosphere was about 144,000 miles away.